Annie Baker O'Donnell, and I am honored to be here today as the student ambassador for the Women Shaping Our Region event. I am 13 years old and I attend Eden Christian Academy. I can't tell you how exciting it is to stand before so many incredible women and leaders who are making a real difference in our community. I heard so many amazing things about this event last year, and now I not only get to attend, but I also get to help kick things off. So with that being said, if you are able, would you please stand and rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may now be seated. And now, before we begin, I'd like to recognize any students who are here with us today. If you are a student, please stand up. Thank you for being a part of this inspiring afternoon. Finally, it is my pleasure to introduce someone who has been a tremendous leader for our community and our Commonwealth. Please join me in welcoming to the podium State Representative Stephanie Shalaba, representing Pennsylvania's 12th District.
Thank you. Thank you, Annie. I think you deserve a round of applause because although we are celebrating women, it starts with the young women, just like Annie. Thank you. It is truly an honor to be here today in my hometown, my area that I represent. This is the place I consider home. It's a place that is growing. It's a place where it's thriving. We are one of few areas in the Commonwealth that are growing. And we're not just growing, we're growing at an unprecedented pace. And it's all in testament to the people in this room. So I'm thrilled to be here among women who are not only leading in their fields, but also shaping the very fabric of our communities. As a state representative, lawyer, a mother, and a neighbor, I have seen firsthand how women drive the progress of this region through the boardroom, the classroom, the courtroom, and the countless everyday activities and moments that build strong families and stronger communities. Professionally, the women in this room are innovators, problem solvers, and visionaries. You're running businesses, building teams, mentoring others, and creating opportunities that keep Western Pennsylvania growing and strong. You're shaping the economy, public policy, education, and the arts with purpose and integrity. But your impact doesn't stop at the workplace. Personally, you're the steady hands guiding families, volunteering in schools, leading faith groups, and showing young girls what resilience and leadership look like. You bring the same commitment to your communities that you bring to your professions. And that balance, that authenticity, is what makes your influence so powerful and so impactful. When women rise, our entire region rises with them, with stronger families, more dynamic workplaces, and a future defined by collaboration and compassion. So today, let's celebrate not only what we achieve at work, but who we are at heart. Women shaping our region in every sense of the word. The path for women is anything but traditional. So, in homage to the unconventional, let's raise our glasses of water to the women shaping our region. With that, it is my pleasure to hand it over to Jessica from PBX so that we move into our next stage of programming and learn about your leadership, your example, and the difference you make every single day.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Jessica Shaker, and I am honored to stand in front of you today as the Senior Membership and Engagement Director of the Pittsburgh Business Exchange for the past 4 years. I'm even more honored to be standing in front of such an incredible room of women who are really shaping our region. Before we get into the program, I would really just like to recognize a few special people and organizations that are in this room that have really helped to shape this event. I'm going to ask that as I call your name, if you are in this room, to please stand and remain standing. I'll ask you to be seated, and then I'm going to ask everybody to hold their applause just a moment. With no further ado, there are quite a few government officials in this room who have very busy schedules, yet have made the time to be here with us today. I'd like to start with the Honorable Maureen Lally Green, Judge Marilyn Haran, our panelist and PA Treasurer, Stacey Garrity, Senator Camara Bartolotta, Senator Pat Stefano, Senator Devlin Robinson, Representative Marla Brown, Representative Tim O'Neill, Representative Stephanie Shalaba, Representative Jill Cooper, Representative Arvind Venkat, Commissioner Electra Janis, Commissioner Kevin Boozle, who, by the way, I think has never missed a Women Shaping Our Region event, and he always comes repping in his pink. And Mayor John David Longo. Thank you all for your leadership. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. Next, I would love to thank our PBX Sustainable Partners. These are 4 core organizations that are truly the heart of PBX and the highest level of support that you can be with us. Without them, we would not be standing here 15 years later and counting. Thank you to January Schindelmeyer with Aon, Mike Reynolds with Lado AI, Michael Halprin with EOS Worldwide, and Maria Batista with the Judge Group. Let's give them all one strong clap. Thank you. And last, but certainly not least, our Women Shaping Our Region Gold and Presenting sponsors. We have some special people who truly, without their contribution and active participation in this event, we would not all be here today. So thank you to Nicole Mills with CTR Payroll. Please stand if you're here. Americans for Prosperity, Emily Green, January Schindelmeyer with Aon, PA American Water and their team, Next Tier Bank and their team. Armstrong Comfort Solutions was one of our presenting sponsors, and One Team Media. Thank you. Next, I am very, very excited to introduce our next speaker, one of our presenting sponsors, the CEO of One Team Media, Brian Hess. He is not only the CEO of One Team Media, but also the Pavement Group, Shiloh Plates and Pour in Mount Washington, Top Contractor School. He's got a podcast and a billion other things. But what's super cool about Brian is he's not just an incredible leader, but he's also a very incredible guy. He's got his wonderful wife, Lori, here. He's got 5 amazing children that he's dedicated to. And something that I personally really appreciate about him is his dedication to his faith. So with no further ado, let's all welcome up our presenting sponsor, Brian Hess.
All right. Good afternoon. How you guys doing? Everybody feeling good? All right. So Ethan asked me to do things like this every once in a while. I would say strongly encourage would fill that spot. And sometimes when he does that, he leaves out little details like I will be the only guy speaking at this event. And he conveniently waits until like the week of to let these types of secrets out. But seriously though, it's an incredible honor to stand here today among so many powerful and inspiring women who are not just shaping our region, but the future of leadership itself. I got the honor of spending some time this morning with a bunch of the leaders and the ladies that you'll be hearing from today. It is just an incredible honor to be here with you guys. But before I say anything else, I want to take a minute to thank my wife who is here with me today. She doesn't get to many things because we have 5 children. So if you could stand real quick and recognize my wife. Lori is the heart of our family and the quiet strength behind every single thing that I do. Watching her lead our family, support our businesses, and give so selflessly to everybody around her reminds me every day what true leadership looks like. She doesn't just talk about values, she lives them, and that inspires me to be better in every single area of my life. And to the women in this room, thank you guys for leading the way, no pun intended. Thank you for challenging the status quo, for lifting others up, and for showing all of us what courage, compassion, and consistency in leadership truly looks like. To the team at PBX, thank you for creating spaces like this. You don't just organize events, you build community. You connect people who might never have the chance to meet otherwise, and you help all of us see what's possible when we come together. I'm proud to be among so many women who are breaking barriers, setting new standards for leadership in our region. It's not just inspiring, it's a call to action to all of us to keep building a world where everyone's voice helps shape the future. You are shaping our region in ways that will ripple for generations and inspire little girls just like my two daughters to go chase and achieve every single dream they have. I'm honored just to share this room with you guys. Thank you. And now, it is my honor and privilege to introduce your moderator for today. Lisa Sylvester is one of Pittsburgh's most trusted voices in journalism, known not only for her award-winning storytelling, but also for the warmth and authenticity she brings to every single broadcast. Before joining WPXI, Lisa spent years reporting on some of the nation's biggest stories from Washington, D.C. and CNN's The Situation Room. Today, she continues to inspire our community through her professionalism, grace, and genuine connection to the people she serves. Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Sylvester.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'm going to just take my seat and we're going to get started here with the program. But I do want to do a shout out first to State Representative Marcy Mostello, who I understand has just arrived. If you can stand up and be acknowledged. There she is. Can everybody hear me, first of all? Can everybody hear me? It is a much larger space than we have had in the past. I think when this event first started, there were 250 people, and I was actually honored to be among one of the first panelists to take part in this. So I was actually sitting in one of those chairs. And now as I look across this room, and that's why I want to make sure everybody in the back can hear me as well, I am so awe-inspired. There are 800 of you here today. Women, that is power. That is strength. And you're going to hear this again and again. It is a beautiful thing when women can come together to support each other, to uplift each other, to network with each other, and to show what winning looks like every single day. And it feels so good. So please give yourselves a huge round of applause for everything that you do. I also want to thank all of our sponsors. I would also like to take some time out to thank Ethan, and Ethan by way of Jim Roddy. Jim Roddy, as many of you know, passed away, and he was so foundational to this organization and the fact that we are still here today. And it was Jim Roddy who all those many years ago reached out to me. And as many of you know, if you've gotten a call from Jim Roddy, when Jim Roddy calls, you answer. And that's just the way it is. And he had a way of bringing so many people together and still does. Ethan told me a story just this past week, and I'd like to acknowledge his wife, Kim, who is in the back in the pink blazer. If we can give her a round of applause. And let me tell you why. Some of you may know this. Some of you may know this. Some of you may not know this. And Ethan's given me permission to share this with you. But she had brain surgery 2 weeks ago, and she is here now. 2 weeks ago, and it was because of a connection that Ethan had through Jim Roddy that he was able, and the family, they were able to get her into surgery within a matter of days, as in like 2 days after she was diagnosed. That is a testament to the power of networking. It's hard to describe because people will say, well, it's who you know and if you have a contact. But it's more than just having a business card. It's more than just having a phone number. It's if you need help, can you pick up the phone and call that person? If they need help, can they call you and ask you a favor? That's what it is about. That is what is creating community. So again, if we could give Kim a round of applause for everything that she has done. Thank you for being here. I also want to thank the Butler County Chamber of Commerce. Jordan Grady is here somewhere. Look for the bow tie. Look for the bow tie. There he is. There he is. He's got his hand up. And this is a very special event for me. I have done this before, both as a panelist, and last year I was honored to be a moderator. So sitting in the chair, because there were now a lot more of you here. But today there's someone special also in the audience. And if she can stand, it is my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter. Amelia Tedesco, Fox Chapel Area High School. I love you. People will know this about me, that you might see me on Channel 11 on WPXI, but I had this conversation earlier. What I do when you see me on the air, that's what I do for a living, but who I am at my core and foundation is I am a mom. I'm a mom. I put that first and foremost in my life. And I know that there's so many moms out there, wives, sisters. So again, take a deep breath and give yourself applause just for being here, for all that you have accomplished, for learning and growing. And I love that there are other students in this room. It fills my heart with joy. And I see you. I see you, students. I see you over there. I see you. Please take advantage of this opportunity. Go up to someone. There's going to be networking time. Go up to someone, introduce yourself, tell them who you are, tell them your dreams, your hopes, your desires. Whether you're a student, whether you're in the business for 20 years, whether you're looking to make a transition to a new field or a new job, introduce yourself. This is what this is all about. And we can start with getting a chance to meet some of our panelists, which I'm going to call up our panelists one by one. They're going to all take a seat and then they'll have a chance to tell them a little bit about themselves and such. But let's begin first. She probably needs no introduction. As you know, she's got her sights set on a higher job, but Treasury Secretary Stacey Garrity of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And as Stacey is getting seated, I will call up Kia Tomlin, owner of Kia Tomlin. This is a much bigger room, so it's a much longer walk. So next we have Kenya T. Boswell, president of the Highmark Foundation. Jennifer Bertetto, president and CEO of Trib Total Media. Victoria Cush, a shareholder of Buchanan. And Megan Koval, president of Butler County Community College. We know a lot of students here from Butler County Community College, well repped here today. All right, I believe we have a couple of different microphones that will be passed between the women. Do we have the microphones up here? Oops. Apparently we need one more chair. So somebody's going to be on it? Don't you know Ethan comes to the rescue? I was going to say, you can take my chair. Let's give another round of applause now to our panelists as we are getting them seated. And we have the microphones up? Do we have the two microphones? Are live behind. Okay. All right. If you want to grab the microphones, if we can start here with Stacey. I want you each to say just a few words. Introduce yourselves to the public. What do they need to know about you? What would you like them to know about you and why you're here today?
Sure. So first of all, I am so honored to be here with all of you. I'm the state treasurer, which means I'm the fiscal watchdog of $170 billion, and that's why this is important. It's because it's your money, not Harrisburg's. Okay, but this is my first political office, but not my first venture in public service. So prior to being the treasurer, I spent 30 years in the Army Reserve, 3 deployments to the Middle East, and at the same time, I worked in the private sector in manufacturing at the largest tungsten smelter in the Western world. And like every day that I get to wake up and serve Pennsylvanians as your treasurer is really a blessing to me. So thanks again.
My name is Kia Tomlin. I am designer and founder of my brand, Kia Tomlin, and it is a comfort first fashion brand for women, so far women. And my mission is just to help women feel comfortable, confident, and beautiful in all that we do.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I love your clothes, by the way. So I'm like a mini stalker. I have many items, but I'm Kenya Boswell, Senior Vice President of Community Affairs at Highmark Health and President of the Highmark Foundation. That is a lot. And yes, I really do have 2 jobs. What I want you to know about me is I'm a runner. I don't win races, but I've been running for 10 years nonstop. I'm bad at knitting. I'm a dog mom, all of the things. But the one thing I would want you to know really about me is that I aim to serve others. That is my goal. That's my mission. That's my purpose in life. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Bertetto, and I am the president and CEO of Trib Total Media. And like you, I also have a second job. I get to serve as president and CEO of our digital agency, 535 Media, as well. I'm a cat mom. I'm a wife. I'm an aunt. I'm a daughter. Like all of you sitting out there today, we wear so many hats and we work so hard to balance all of them. And I think so many of us do it beautifully. And I'm just really excited to share some of my experiences here with all of you today. And I hope that you can take something away from it that is helpful in your career or your personal life. And also thank you to Ethan and PBX for inviting all of us to be here today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria Cush, and I'm a shareholder with Buchanan, which is a large national law firm. And I'm a litigation attorney by day, and I'm a mom by night. And like so many of the women in this room, and as Jennifer correctly pointed out, we wear many hats. And so my message to everyone in this room today is hopefully how we juggle those many hats successfully, whether as a professional, as a nonprofit leader, as a parent, as a spouse. We all get further when we work together, and I'm so grateful to be a part of this panel today.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Koval, and I am the proud president of Butler County Community College, the #1 community college in Pennsylvania. I just have to say, we just recently got that distinction, so we're very proud of that. Thank you. It is our mission to serve the community and to provide quality, accessible education, and I'm very proud to be the leader of that institution. Also a huge advocate for women leaders, of which we have so many at the college, and I see so many around the room today. I'm just glad to be here in front of you all, have a chance to share some stories. I think representation is so important for you to hear from all of us and see from all of us, and wonderful to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am very excited. Just to give you a little sense of how this is going to go, I'm going to ask each one of you an individual question. We'll go down the line, and then we'll kind of open it up. I'll throw out some questions. You can pass the mics if you feel a burning desire. Not everyone has to answer every question, but if it's something speaks to you, you want to add something, feel free to just jump in. This is sort of a free-flowing conversation, and I wanted to move my chair so I can see all of you, but also see all of you at the same time. So I love this because even though there are 800 of you, we are having a very intimate conversation with 800 of our friends here. So let's get started. First with you, Stacey Garrity. You are, and you mentioned this, you are a decorated Army veteran with 3 deployments, the first vice president at a global company. Now you are Pennsylvania's state treasurer. You oversee and manage the finances of, I believe it's now the 6th largest economy in the U.S. That if it were a country, it would be the 19th largest in the world. that's a lot. You have a lot on your plate. So what are some of the challenges that you face and you have faced as a woman, climbing up the corporate ladder, climbing up the political ladder, and what lessons did you learn along the way?
Sure. So that's always a tough question for me because I've never really thought about it because I was raised in a very small community, with the values of faith, family, community in that order. And I was the oldest of 4 girls, and my dad always said from when we were really little to adults that don't let anybody tell you that you can't achieve your dream, and winners never quit and quitters never win. He said that every single day. But in the Army, we never really thought about it because think about it, everybody's wearing camouflage, right? And over your heart is a tag that says U.S. Army. So U.S., us. And so you're all just focused on accomplishing the mission. And then in the private sector, I was in tungsten smelting, manufacturing, so very male dominated. But again, I usually did a little bit better than my male counterparts. And I don't know why, if it's because, what did Margaret Thatcher say? If you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. Maybe that's why. Yes, thank you. And then, yes, as the treasurer, there's 350 employees. We have so many different bureaus. And I won't get into the details, but you all know we have unclaimed property. We have the PA 529 College and Career Savings Plan. We have PA ABLE. I go to all 67 counties every single year. But what I do is live the Army values no matter what I'm doing. And those are loyalty, duty, respect, service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. So I find that if you always do the right thing, no matter what, don't worry about politics, don't worry about other pressures. If you always do the right thing, then things tend to work out well. And what I like to say to young women is you're looking at somebody from a very rural county. First person in my family to go to college. If you would have told me when I was some of your age, I saw some of the young ladies standing up, that I would join the Army and spend 30 years and retire as a colonel, I would have said, I don't think so. If you would have told me I would have worked in manufacturing for over 3 decades and become one of 2 female vice presidents, I would have said, I don't know about that. And then if you told me that I would have run for a statewide from Bradford County and won, I would have said, no way. So my message is, if I can do it, you can do it. You can achieve your goals, and don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't. And don't let anybody tell you that it's not your time. You can do whatever you want to do. And I can't wait to see what you do end up achieving.
That is a great, great message, especially for the young ladies and young men in this room who happen to be in this room. So next question to Kia Tomlin. From passion to brand, you moved from designing and then launching your own sustainable women's fashion brand that is now officially licensed across 32 NFL teams. A rare feat in itself. So what was your aha moment? Like, when did you know that you had this vision? Because a lot of people have a vision, but then they have to make it and turn it into reality. What was your aha moment?
So growing up, I actually never dreamed of being a fashion designer. I did start sewing and designing when I was about 10 years old, but it was out of necessity. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, and we lived in a town that did. We were one of 3 Black families, and on top of that, I was extremely, extremely small. So not only could I not afford what the other kids were wearing, I couldn't even fit it if we could afford it. So I asked my mom for a sewing machine at 10 and started to learn to teach myself how to sew. And by doing that, I realized that I could fit in what I thought was fit in. But then I also realized that not only could I fit in, I could do something different than what the other kids were wearing, and I can make myself stand out in a good way. So it was always just something that I loved to do, but I never envisioned or dreamed about going into fashion design. I didn't know anybody that did it. I actually honestly thought it was superficial. I had planned to go to medical school. So after college, things happened. I got married and started moving around the country with my husband and his very demanding job. So medical school did not turn into a possibility. And someone told me to figure out what you love to do and find a way to make money doing it. And that was easy to think about because I loved fashion design. I'd always done it everywhere we went, just as a hobby. I loved doing it for other people. So I set out, and after attending design school formally to get some formal training and workshops across the country, I opened my own custom design business. I specialized in evening wear, wedding gowns, that type of thing. And unlike, I guess, what I was thinking, that I'd have these like red carpet starlets that I would be designing for. And I did have a couple, but primarily my clientele were middle-aged women. Those are the women that can't find what they're looking for in the stores. Maybe our bodies have changed from what we were used to shopping for, and we're just maybe not feeling so great about what they were wearing and what was offered. And I realized that I had a special skill in that I could transform women, and you could visually see the change in their confidence when they would put on one of my designs that I would custom design for them. And they would go from maybe having a big event that they were very nervous about, didn't want the limelight, didn't want the attention, to like, I can't wait to wear this, and I want all eyes on me. And so that's when that was the aha moment, is that I realized that fashion wasn't superficial, that it was actually transformative. And I wanted to be able to do that for more women, more than just for special events. And so that's when I started the ready-to-wear brand, so that I could dress more women with that feeling and give them that feeling of comfort, confidence, and beauty at an affordable price that they can wear every day for every occasion. And then that transferred into the NFL collection, and I was the first Black woman to receive an NFL license, where I do the same thing with just, thank you. Thank you. So I do the same thing, but just with team branding, and looking forward to seeing what other industries I can conquer.
Wow, what an amazing story, because it's your journey, right? It's like where you started, the why behind it, and it's your journey and where it leads you and where it will continue to take us. It's really great to see that. Thank you very much for sharing that. Next up, Kenya T. Boswell, to talk about healthy communities, and I think that health is always on the minds of a lot of people. One of the things, though, is that healthcare costs continue to rise, even as employers and families are trying to make the best choices. So how is Highmark Health supporting healthy living initiatives, trying to move the needle on this, and looking ahead, what are some of the areas where Highmark Health can really prioritize and have an impact on our community and create some of the lasting change in the next years and really the decade to come?
That is a big question.
About 3 questions in there.
I appreciate the question. In addition to rising healthcare costs is not sustainable and not good for anyone, there's also a great deal of mistrust within the healthcare system. You know, let's call it what it is. And some of the things that I am personally proud of, and one of the reasons why I came to work for Highmark Health, is our approach to the community. Community is not about investing in, doing some grand, showing up for, press events. It's knowing that we cannot help people reach their ultimate health without community-based organizations, without those trusting partners, without faith-based partners. We're not able to go at it alone. Some examples of things that we do within an enterprise, and I do want to do a shout out to our award-winning social determinants of health departments. They are looking at how can we work with the communities to help close the gap, right? If somebody comes in, for whatever reason, they may be receiving treatment, all the doctor can do is provide you with some tools at home for you to try to do on your own. There's so many different reasons why someone may not be able to either have access to those tools or utilize those tools. That's where we go and partner with trusted community-based organizations to take it from there. Those are the organizations that's making sure that someone that may have diabetes have to do the proper plan to be able to manage that disease. Those are the organizations that's helping someone that may be feeling food insecurity to be able to have access to quality, healthy food. And we're doing this not just saying, hey, we're going to pass the buck, but we're also incentivizing and investing in those organizations to be able to do so. Another example is something that I'm extremely proud of that you may think of as, sort of a untraditional partnership. we have a partnership with AHN and Humane Animal Rescue. You may be scratching your head. What does that have to do with humans and health? But we also notice, going back to the trust sort of factor, there may be some individuals that's experiencing, housing insecurity. They may be homeless, right? And we have heard that, even if someone is housed, they may be at a point where they will rather feed their pet than take care of themselves. So they came up with this Humane Animal Coalition in which they literally send out vets and doctors to be able to treat humans and their pets as well, right? Think of that. Think of how transformative that is. We're saying that we truly want to provide access to care to everyone, and we're going to go above and beyond the traditional methods to do that. So if we're looking for the next 10 years, my big bet is how do we continue to invest in our nonprofit partners and really stressing the partnership aspect of that. And I don't mean just, for programmatic support, which is very important, but how do we end up doing those transformative investments with capacity building, right? Unrestricted grants, so they can be there and help our most vulnerable members of our community.
All right, thank you, Kenya. I want to delve into that more because I think the nonprofit space is very, very important, and having the stakeholders in this room on the political side, on the nonprofit side, and on the business side as well, and bringing everybody together. So, Jennifer, we've known each other for a number of years. The future of local media innovation, something I'm very, very kind of clued in on because the landscape has changed a lot. We've talked about how media organizations have faced a lot of pressure, how things are changing, the financial sustainability, how AI has impacted things. Talk about what are some of the innovations and the approaches that you believe will help regional news outlets remain relevant and really focused on the community, because that's what it's about, right? Focused on the community in the coming years.
Absolutely. And if I may, just take a moment. I know there is a table here of members of the Butler Eagle. Where are you? There you are. Since this event was born in Butler County, I would be remiss if I didn't give them a shout out for the amazing work that Tammy Shuey and her team are doing at the Butler Eagle. Amazing efforts towards local journalism. We had awards yesterday in Harrisburg. They had a stack of hardware this big. So this is my commercial for all of you. Please, if you haven't paid attention to the Butler Eagle lately, give them a visit. Even better, sign up for a subscription because, when we talk about media today, and we had a really interesting conversation this morning, I have never seen in my 27 years a climate that has been more difficult to be in this space. And it is difficult for a number of reasons. We face economic challenges. We face misinformation. We face disinformation. There is a lack of trust in media generally. And those of us that are on the front lines, and my colleagues here at Trib Live are in attendance as well, we are at the front of the line saying, how do we work together? How do we work with other publishers to try to solve some of these problems? I don't see the landscape getting easier for us, but some of the things that we're doing at Trib Live, for example, to try to be more innovative and plan for the future. We've taken steps within our newsroom to really talk about, the news story is just a story. It doesn't have to be that a story now has to be printed and posted online or posted in print. A story can be on TikTok. A story can be on LinkedIn. A story can be on X. We need to meet our readers where they are today, and that is evolving rapidly every single day. And that's something that's an industry we had not traditionally done well in the past. We want to hang on to the way things used to be and tell all of you, this is what we think is important. You need to know this. And that's not acceptable anymore. The community wants to be a part of the story. So another initiative that we launched probably 3 years ago, and Lindsay Bach is in the crowd, and she was one of the leaders of this initiative, was bringing on board community contributors to our local news website. So we found people that were in local government, running the local library, and we asked them, please come to our platform. We'll give you a trusted contributor badge, and we want you to share the stories of your community directly with the people that are your neighbors. So those have been just a few of the more broad ideas around storytelling. But also as a newsroom, we have to be more innovative. We have to have an innovative culture. We need to work quickly. But if we're going to fail, and trust me, I will never sit here and pretend we have all the answers. We have failed spectacularly in several initiatives. But as long as, if failure only happens because you're moving forward and you're trying, right? So I'm okay with that. And I say, let's try, don't be afraid. Try anything you can dream up of. No idea is too crazy. Let's talk about it. Let's make it happen. And I think our newsroom, it has taken, the better part of my 10 years in this role to really get them on board with that innovative culture. But every day we're making strides. And then finally, I would say that it is table stakes for this industry that we as a business unit must innovate. So at Trib Total Media, we invest in other companies. At one point, we were a partner in an opioid treatment center. Most people don't know that. We have our own artificial intelligence company called MeSearch that actually just merged with another nationwide entity called Own Local. Because I am certain that with the way media is fractured, that makes advertising to, if you own a business, advertising to your audience very challenging. We need to find other ways to fund our journalism mission. And that's another way where we often try to be very creative. At 535, we literally built a full tech stack. What does that mean? If you're like me 2 years ago when someone pitched it, I thought, okay. We've created our own mini Google. So we can now take in ads from, publishers and content producers. We can take in demand from advertisers and then connect them with the publishers and content producers to help them monetize their inventory. So these are all of the different ways, and there are probably 50 more. I could talk about this for the rest of the day, and I won't. But we need to be innovative.
All right, let's move on to Victoria Kush. As a trial attorney, and it was great talking with you. We had a chance to talk this morning at a breakfast. Your work is, you're constantly having to make strategic decisions. You're in a high stakes area. And I know that, being able to remain calm, presence of mind in the moment, both in the courtroom and within your corporate structure, that often is a clear sign. That's what leadership is, right? Leadership is a lot of these soft skills that people don't necessarily talk a lot about, but maybe if you can address the ways of how you're able to, because it has to be a high-paced, fast-paced industry. So if you can talk a little bit, how do you center yourself and keep calm in those situations?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Lisa. In large civil litigation, we are often involved in not just million-dollar disputes, but tens and hundreds of million-dollar disputes, which those stakes really can't get any higher. And, as I've come through my profession, I think there's really three things that distill the ability to navigate and hopefully succeed in those high-stakes scenarios. The first of which is the fundamental groundwork of preparation. In this day and age of ChatGPT, of AI, of any other legal or technology assistant program, at the end of the day, preparation is the greatest antidote to anxiety, to the stress of these high-stakes situations, and it can't be skipped. And that's a message to our younger generation these days, is that I would not be seated in this chair today if I don't prepare each and every day for each and every one of my cases, clients, oral arguments. You never know what types of questions will be lobbed by a judge or be put in a brief by opposing counsel. And the level of preparation that is necessary can never be excused or substituted through some type of technological agent. The second piece is the notion of using your voice. I can't tell you the number of times that people have said to me, Victoria, you don't look like a litigation attorney. And I take a step back and I pause. I think I even got that comment this morning. And what does a litigation attorney look like? How does a person successfully position themselves to succeed in a high-stakes scenario? And I will tell you, the number of calls that we get to Buchanan saying, I need a pit bull. And we say, you're calling the wrong firm. Because you do not need somebody who can raise their voice. You need somebody who can elevate your argument. And that, at the end of the day, that is one of the keys to success in any high-stakes scenario. Anyone in this room, my daughter's here, my husband's here, they can tell you I know how to raise my voice, but I do not utilize it when I'm advocating for my clients and their arguments. And that is a fundamental key to keep your cool in those high-stakes scenarios. I think the third fundamental element is to always remember to be the pragmatist and the voice of reason in the room. As a lawyer, as a litigator, you think, oh, you're arguing. Yes, we are arguing, but we are also professional problem solvers. And with a background in business, I think that was one of the best elements that set me up for my legal career, going into a business curriculum that helped me understand economics, micro, macro, statistics, how to present key facts and figures, how to market yourself, because all of those parts and pieces go into being able to survive and thrive in high-stakes scenarios like that. So those would be my 3 keys in order to distill them. Preparation is always your foundation. Maintaining your calm, your cool, your collected presence to elevate that argument. And the third piece being always work to be the voice of reason, be the problem solver in the room.
Excellent advice. Thank you. All right, last but not least, we have Megan Koval. You have followed a long tenured and well-respected president. You jumped in. How do you navigate a transition like that while still maintaining BC3's culture of excellence and momentum?
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that question. I certainly did follow a very long-tenured and well-respected leader at BC3. Many of you may be familiar with Dr. Newpower. He was in the seat of president for 17 years, which is an extraordinarily long tenure for a college president, especially these days. I think the average tenure for a college president across all sectors is 5 years. So if you think about that, I wasn't really inheriting just an office. I was inheriting a legacy and a culture and a rhythm the college had, and basically, expectations and norms that were set over a very long period of time. And then you combine that with the fact, and you don't have to look any further than the headlines to know that it's a very complicated and challenging, unique time for higher education. So we have changing demographics, we have fewer high school students, fierce competition, and in a lot of ways, people are sort of having a higher level of distrust of higher education. So all of these internal and external factors are at play, right, when I'm coming into this seat. And so I realized very early on that if I was going to be successful, and if I was going to be able to move the needle on anything, that I really needed to spend that first year rooting my leadership in respect for what and who came before me, humility and vulnerability for the internal and external factors that were at play, and then also groundedness. So I think a lot of leaders come in their first year, and I totally get this and the feeling of wanting to do this, making all the changes, doing things different. I have this idea. I want to show everyone what my mark is. But I knew after talking to folks, it was just such a great time of uncertainty and really kind of a time of high tenderness with the college that I couldn't boil the ocean. So much to the fact that when I talked with the trustees who have been incredibly supportive, my number one goal and really my overarching goal was just to provide steady, stable leadership throughout the year to keep the ship moving along. And so what did that look like? I keep telling people it was a people year, meaning I spent in my team 90% of the time over the past year sitting with people, talking with people, discussing discomfort, discussing uncertainty, sitting in my own discomfort at times. And here's where that was hard. We all, I think, across this panel here and across the room have those moments that wake you up at 2 a.m. For me, I would wake up and think, but what am I actually doing? I was having some doubt taking the people route. But I realize now that we're making some good progress on some strategic initiatives and making some moves, that it was investing in the people and laying the groundwork for trust that was so incredibly important. We never could have been doing some of the things we're starting to do if I hadn't made time for that. And so I thought I would share sort of 3 main takeaways for you from that first year in the event that they might be helpful and might resonate. The first is that I learned just in such a firsthand way that authenticity builds trust. And building trust also comes from letting people know sometimes that you just don't know the answer or you don't know the answer right now. The second one is that stillness and the ability to be still is an incredible leadership quality. Regulated people regulate rooms. And I learned that so deeply over the past year. And then the last one is something that I've known ever since I've been managing teams. I've managed about 4 teams now, is that if you're going to be a good leader and a good manager, it is going to take up most of your time. My very first boss told me when I took over my first team, he said, leadership management is the hardest part of the job. And if it's not the hardest part of the job, you're probably not doing it good enough. And so that always has stuck with me.
All right, thank you. Let's give them a round of applause here. I was taking notes. I'm a note taker. I love taking notes about everything, but I love the idea of authenticity, of preparation, of innovation, of risk taking, of having your voice, and being authentic. I mean, it's really, it doesn't matter what field or industry that you go into. All of these are very important qualities. But I want to ask a question that's sort of near and dear to my heart, because this is one I have grappled with and I've thought long and hard about, which is balancing. You know, one of my key words is balance. And some days I'm better at it than other days, to be honest. Some days I'm really bad at it. But I try to, and I think a lot of successful women, you want to be there for everything and everyone at all times. And it's not always possible to do that. So how do you prioritize what matters most, both at home and in the office, without compromising your sense of your values or your long-term vision, because your goals matter too? How do you find that balance? If any one of you want to take that question.
I'll jump in here and say that balance is a little bit of a misnomer sometimes, I think, because as any woman on this panel and in the audience can reflect, the suggestion that you are sometimes using a scale, right? So one thing goes up while the other goes down is a little incongruent, because you don't want to necessarily prioritize your career while your family drops. And you want to continue to boost your family, but you don't want to let your career drop. And so the notion of balance, I think, is actually best reframed into harmonization of your life and looking at the people, the friends, the relationships, and the opportunities you have to build everything that you enjoy into the time that you have. And for the folks that are close to me, they know I try and harmonize a lot of my outside interests outside of legal practice. Certainly one of the elements that's very uniting is a need for wellness, taking care of our physical health. And I desire to do that with my family. And so my husband and my 2 children and I all train in Taekwondo together. And that checks the boxes of physical exertion, some stress relief, some good codes of moral conduct, and of course the physical elements and well-being, and a little achievement thrown in. Other items of harmonization, people know me as a singer, somebody who uses my voice outside of the legal profession. And a great way for me to harmonize that is in service to my faith community, serving as a cantor for my church, which I do at St. Ferdinand and St. Kilian and other churches around the diocese. And so that's a great joy for me. And so I think if everybody has a little bit of self-assessment, you can find ways to harmonize those things that are truly important to your core and to your family and to your well-being, and build them into your life in a way that's not necessarily off-ramping your professional goals.
Kia, did you want to add some things? Oh, well, let's give her, I love that, by the way, the harmonization. Kia, it looked like you wanted to say something as well on this.
I guess for me, same thing. I don't really see it as balance. I see it as prioritization, and you can't prioritize everything at the same time. And so you kind of got to pick and choose at the moment that, you know, what moment is most important at that time. And for me, it may be if I have a big project or opportunity at work, you know, I communicate that to the family. The family is on board. They understand the expectations. they chip in and help. And then when that project is over, the focus shifts back. I think it's a combination of that, but as well as allowing myself to know that I don't have to be perfect at everything. And that helps create some balance.
Yeah, I think giving ourselves grace is a big one. Stacy?
Sure, I agree with Kia, and great answer. So balance is always something I've been struggled with, and those of you who know me understand that. But I've had adopted some tips. So when I am home, which I am not home very often, I really try to be in the moment and maximize that time. We have family tradition of going to Canada with no cell service for 1 week a year, the same week. So we've kept those traditions, making sure you're at birthdays, major milestones that are important to your family members, and then really making sure that you're grounded, because I find, especially in the political world, when people start rising through the ranks, they start thinking, they get in a little bubble. And so in Harrisburg, they have, which I found this obnoxious, by the way, they have these Power 100 lists. And so after I won the first time in 2021, I get invited to speak, and somehow I'm on this top 100 list of being, a powerful person. And so my speech was very nuanced, that you're not as important as you all think you are. I didn't get invited back for 3 years. But again, really keeping your priorities straight. So I was supposed to speak at this event last year. And I think it was 3 days before the event, my dad went in the hospital. And I was in the middle of campaigning for my second term. Now, it was awful because the programs were printed up, everything was done. I upgraded because I found you got Dina McCormick to come, so I told Ethan, yeah, we upgraded. But I went home and I jumped off. I didn't campaign again for 6 weeks. And people would say, can't you just go to this event and then come back? And I just said, no, I'm out. And my dad even said, don't you have to campaign? And I said, no, I don't have to be anywhere, Dad, but right here with you. And I still, it didn't hurt at all. It probably helped because I had wonderful surrogates that probably spoke more eloquently than I did. But just making sure that your priorities are straight.
On that note, that's a great segue. That is a great segue to the next question, which is the power of saying no. I mean, oftentimes, if you want to seek out new opportunities, you're told, say yes to everything and say yes to everything. And I do this a lot. I say yes to a lot of things, but I have had to, it's about boundary setting, I think really is what it's about. So how have you, can you share a moment where you've set boundaries, where you've had to decline, or you've had to turn down something, or you had to put your family first? But tell me an experience that you had with the power of no. Any one of you want to jump in? Do you want to, Megan? Do you want to start?
I can start. So I'm not going to share one single experience with you, but just that, especially over the past year in taking over the presidency and having a different schedule, I've really kind of had a collective of small no's that have come together to help me set some boundaries, particularly around what I'll call guarding my time. So I don't like to think of a no as a shutting a door, but a no as a preserving space for me to have time to think and plan and strategize as a leader so that I can do that during the day sometimes and not have to do that when I come home and I'm with my family. And I feel like doing that is so important. And I'm continuing to learn these little things that help, like carving out time in the morning for a work period, like maybe saying no to meetings that come in less than 24 hours in advance. Making sure if I'm at a meeting, do I really need to be there? Am I adding value? These are all things that I think make a really big difference. And one thing I want to just say, I'll share a very quick story, is that as leaders, it's so important for that to model that to the people that we work with. And people are watching all of us all the time. And I had an instance about a month ago where I was talking to a team member on the phone, and I was supposed to BC3 had a race. And I said I was going to run that race in addition to being there and working it. And I was in a hotel room, and I just said to her, I'm not running it. I'm not ready to run it. I don't want to run it. And she said to me, gosh, I just needed to hear you say no to something. And that took my breath away. I was like, that was the response. And so I hope that makes an impact.
All right, Jennifer, do you want to weigh in? Any thoughts on this subject?
Sure. So, when we talk about experiences, I think back to earlier in my career, around 2010, I had just been named the COO at Trib Total Media. And prior to that, I had been the advertising director, and I had come up through advertising, and I knew everything about it, backwards and forwards. I knew how to get everything done in the company. And as I'm sure most of you can relate, I'm a type A. I liked having that control, and I liked knowing exactly what to do at every moment and being able to solve every problem and fix anything that came across my desk. And when I was promoted, my boss said to me, the way that you work is going to have to significantly change if you are going to be successful in this, elevation in your career. You are going to have to learn to count on other people, that it can't always be you. And I was probably in the job for 2 weeks, still trying to be me and know all the answers and have all the solutions. And I realized very quickly that I didn't. And it was so humbling. And it was in that moment that I realized if I was going to be successful, truly be successful, I had to trust in the team around me and trust in their competencies and their capabilities and allow them also to grow into leadership roles. And slowly over time, I could see myself getting more comfortable with, this is how it's supposed to go. This is actually how you build a healthy organization. It can't be built around one person's knowledge. We had a conversation just last week over lunch about, when you're in a leadership role and when, you work in media, it is 24/7, 365. There's no way around it. I can't just say, I'm not going to answer my phone for the next 2 hours. I don't have that luxury. But so with that, there is a price to pay when you have those responsibilities. So I think it's important to also recognize that the people around you sometimes are the ones who pay the price ultimately for those responsibilities. So I try to be very intentional now with my family, with my friends, with things I say no to. I've been working really hard this year saying no to more things. And that's challenging too. I want to please people. I want to help. I want to volunteer. I want to lead. I want to do everything they ask of me, but I'm not bringing my best self forward for anyone when I'm spread too thin.
All right, Kenya, I'll let Kenya, and then if you want to.
I was reflecting on this not too long ago, and I was thinking about some amazing opportunities I was presented with was because someone said no. And it was no, but you may want to consider Kenya for those type of opportunities. And I think of, why do I sometimes hesitate saying no? So one may be literally the fear of missing out, let's be honest. 2, it may be the fear of disappointing someone. Or 3, it may be the fear that I won't be asked again. But I start reframing it by thinking, if I really cannot do something for some reason, I always want to sit there and say no, but have you considered this person? Have you considered that person? And that has turned it into an opportunity for others. So something else for us to think about, if we're feeling guilty about saying no for something, it may be a no for us, but can this be an opportunity for someone else?
That is great. That's awesome. Victoria, do you want to add something to the conversation?
I actually had a similar reaction to shared with Kenya, but just to add a little bit more color to this conversation, I see so many women in this room that have been in the trenches because of saying yes. But I also don't want to dispel this notion or this trend of just like no is the answer and no is the way. To Kenya's point, no, but who else? And to add some further color to that, I think you also have to remember the power of saying, it's not no, it's just a not now. Because the power of saying yes is truly what transforms this region. And it's so important that we set boundaries, but there have been so many times over the course of my professional career where I have been called upon to do things where I'm so tempted to say no. And that guilt that we've spoken about up on this panel has crept in. And I said, you know what? Yes, I will. And some of those yeses have been the most transformational opportunities in the space of nonprofit service. called upon to serve on the board of Girl Scouts Western Pennsylvania. I came this close to saying no, and I said lots of no buts, and all those women said no, and I said, oh, okay. But to help lead an organization that builds and cultivates girls of courage, confidence, and character, and who make the world a better place, has given me so much professional fulfillment in a profession that is riddled with brutality sometimes and animosity, recognizing that there is so much beauty to fill your cup through service to nonprofits that need our help. So even if it might be a no, even if it's a not me but somebody else, consider that if it's a no, just not now, and find that time when it may be appropriate in your life to be able to contribute and give back, because that's what shapes our region.
All right, thank you very much. Stacy, it looked like you wanted to add something. Do you want to add something briefly on this, and then we'll move on to our next question?
Sure, I can. So no's typically not in my vocabulary, but I think this was around 2010. So I just picked up battalion command, which means about 900 soldiers, 5 units, big responsibility, and at the same time, got promoted to vice president in the private sector, where they expected me to be literally, I'm not exaggerating, in a different country every month. So a general came to me, my brigade commander, and said, hey, I want you to sign up for War College, which you need typically to get promoted to full bird colonel or continue on to brigadier general. And you typically, for those, any of you that know anything about the military, you don't say no to a general. But I thought about it long and hard, and I thought, okay, I can do 3 things mediocre, or I can be really good at 2 things. And I thought, is it fair to my company commanders, my soldiers, for me to basically say, okay, I'm going to go to War College and sort of be sidelined? So I had to say to the general turn, sir, with all due respect, I'm going to be the best battalion commander you're ever going to have. I cannot do this right now because it would be a disservice to our soldiers.
All right, thank you very much for that answer. I also want one housekeeping note. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Armstrong. So thank you very much. Consider this a little commercial break right now, but thank you to Armstrong, our presenting sponsor. And then we'll move on to our next question, which, Kia, I'd like for you to start with this, if we may. Mentorship and empowering others. So what intentional steps do you take to mentor and elevate other women in your industry? And what practical advice would you give to offer young women, and I know there are a lot of young women in the audience here who might be encountering things as either they're starting their career or maybe middle of their career, encountering gender bias or barriers in the workplace. So what steps do you take to help mentor and sort of have a big tent and bring others in?
I think a big issue for women is, or a big barrier, I should say, for women is both access and confidence. And so personally, I like to provide that, especially in fashion, where we don't have that much of an industry here in Pittsburgh, to be very welcoming to people that are interested in learning and getting some exposure and really trying to support and uplift them, things that I didn't have starting out. And so that's whether it's through internships, whether it's through telling my story, talking about mistakes, or just being a visual presence to allow people to see someone doing that. In terms of advice, I would give back to my childhood when I was in, I think, 1st or 2nd grade. They have this group called EPAT, and I don't even remember what it stood for, but it was basically like the gifted, talented. And they picked, I think there was 8 of us in this group. And I remember being in this group and always being terrified to answer questions, to be called on, because these kids were so smart. They were so smart. I still remember Danny Clatterbuck. I mean, like, he was like my nemesis all through growing up, because I just always thought about, oh my gosh, if I'm in a class with Danny Clatterbuck. And so from then on, I was always afraid, and as well as just being brought up as a girl in my family, it was kind of like you were to be seen and not heard. You know, sit politely, but you don't speak until spoken to. So I think that all played into how I was really afraid to raise my hand for years. And so my advice to young people and women especially, young women especially, is that even though the world may not make room for you, you do belong. Raise your hand, ask the question, ask for help, state your voice. It is valuable. And so that's what I would say, is raise your hand.
Beautiful message. Beautiful. Jennifer, can we bring you into the conversation? What are your thoughts on this in terms of mentorship, empowering others? Because they kind of go hand in hand, mentorship, but it's also uplifting and empowering others. And just your being here, by the way, as role models is very, very empowering. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So I try to be very intentional in our organization. Publishing is still, fortunately or unfortunately, it is still a very male-dominated industry. 10 years ago, whenever I took over in this role, I was literally the only female publisher, I think, in the state at that time. And fortunately, there have been significant changes in that over the last decade. But I work very hard to make sure that young women in our organization who maybe aren't on the executive team yet, but I see have that potential, I will ask them to lead a project. I will ask them to lead a presentation at the board meeting to build their confidence and get them used to having the opportunity to amplify their voice and be a part of the larger discussions that we have within our organization. Within the industry itself, I always am willing to talk to anyone who is looking for pointers as they're just moving into a similar role, having been through a lot of the gauntlet that comes with it. And I often look at those relationships, though, as they're mutually beneficial. I don't want to sit here and pretend ever that I have all of the answers. I often find in all of my relationships, I learn just as much from the person sitting across from me as I could ever impart upon them. So I think that's my advice.
All right. Megan, would you like to say a few words?
So I think one of the most beautiful and intentional things that we can do for those that we mentor and those who are in our care is to show up as our imperfect self when we are with them. Simon Sinek, who is an author and studies leadership, one of the things he says about leaders is, to be perfect or to act perfect in these roles and the roles you are in is to set up an unfair standard for people that you are with. And I just love that, right? So you can have conversations, you can give advice, you can give your experience, but I think how beautiful to also say, I got this wrong. I cried this week. I don't know what to do. All things I've probably done in the last month, if we're being honest. And I think, at the end of the day, what a powerful thing to be able to, break the chains of perfection for a younger generation.
Victoria?
Thanks. So one of the keys to mentorship, I think, particularly in the legal profession and other male-dominated professions, is to encourage our young women to stay in the game. In this current scenario, we are now women are outranking men in law school graduating classes. So we have the women in the profession and the potential to build them in the profession. But as you go through, you see them diminish year after year after year. We have more female summer associates than we do male summer associates and more female associates than we do male associates. But as we move into the ranks of shareholder and the highest ranks of leadership within firms like Buchanan and so many others, we lose our women. And so what I say to the young women who are entering the realm of motherhood or are encountering challenges being in this male-dominated sphere is that the only guaranteed failure is quitting. And getting out of the game is the fastest off-ramp that you will have in life. And if you can find people within your profession, male or female, because I tell you, there are great male advocates for women in the profession, and stay in the game, that is a fundamental component of mentorship and allowing women to continue in these male-dominated fields.
Excellent, excellent. All right, let's move on to our next question. This is one I think everybody can relate to, which is there are always going to be challenges in life. Some of them will go your way, some of them will not go your way. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned about how you have overcome obstacles, what that experience taught you about resiliency and prioritization, and just some of the lessons from life that you've got from coming face to face with challenges? Anyone who wants to go first, or otherwise I'll call on somebody. Stacy, how about you? We'll start with you.
Yes, but we all have. So this kind of could answer the last question plus this question, but I think a lot of it is how you handle adversity. And so in the private sector, I work for a very male-dominated area. And so there was a marketing manager position that came open, and I knew I should have that position. I would have been the first female because, I was the go-to person. I negotiated all the contracts. I was a subject matter expert. Everybody came to me, and they hired a guy, Mike Payne, who probably didn't even know how to spell tungsten. Okay, didn't work in the industry. And so I felt sorry for myself for probably 3 minutes. And then I decided, okay, I have a choice here. I can just sit back and say, good luck, Mike, and see how he does. Or I can make him the best product marketing manager that I can. And so in that moment, I decided that I was going to do everything I could to make sure that he was successful. And so I spent it in it. It was hard. It took me like 6 months. But at the end of the day, he did a good job. We became great friends. And he said for years, I can't believe how much you helped me. And then you know what happened? A few months later, I got a senior product marketing manager job where I was over all the product marketing managers. And I never saw that coming. It was a new position. So sometimes I think it's how you handle a setback. So don't forget that, because you never know, God has a plan. And if you don't get an opportunity, there could be something better around the corner. You just don't know.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Who on the panel, anyone want to take this issue? I'm sure all of you at some point or another have faced some challenges. Megan, would you like to share a time where you have faced an obstacle or a challenge and how you've responded to it?
Yeah, I'll share a story just from this past year. We had to make the very difficult decision that a lot of institutions are having to make these days to no longer offer classes at one of our campuses. So BC3 right now has 5 campuses. Up until last year, we had 6. And it's a tough time in higher education. And one of our campuses in Mercer County, our campus in Mercer County, I should say, just wasn't doing well. And the time had come and we had to make the call that we were going to essentially, shut that campus down. And it was just tremendously difficult because, of course, you're thinking about students, you are thinking about faculty, about staff, you're thinking about alumni who cared, deeply about that place. And ultimately, I made the call with the support of the leadership team that we were going to, essentially close that campus down. And I think for me, the big takeaway was, a decision can be hard and still be right. That decision did not feel good to me. And usually I'll, trust your gut. Well, it wasn't my gut, but it still didn't feel good, but it was still right. And the other thing I learned from that, and this has come up time and time and again, especially in this job, is that a lot of times when difficult decisions are looming, I have realized how happy people are when you just make the call. Sometimes, you all worried about who's going to like it, who's going to not. And most people, it turns out, are just thankful to have the decision made and to know which direction to go in.
Kenya, do you want to jump in here in terms of challenges that you've had to overcome, some lessons that you've learned?
I was hoping you weren't calling on me because I'm sitting there thinking, how can I give an example where I won't get in trouble? But, I was thinking about, and I'm sure we have all been in that place where maybe we have not always had supportive leadership, right? I was working at a place one time where we had new leadership and I was on my 3rd or 4th department head. And this person that came in had their own sort of vision of how they wanted to run things. And, quite frankly, they wanted to bring in their own people as well. So I was provided a Mission Impossible task. It would have been the equivalent of me, phoning up Barack Obama and telling him to come to an event and speak, right? Like, I don't know. But, I was provided with this challenge and I knew, or I felt, I can't say I knew, I felt as if it was, again, one of those things that was, opportunity for me to fail, for this particular leader. But instead of getting in my feelings, I took a step back, and this was a perfect opportunity to figure out if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail with all that I have to fail. And I gave it my all. So I went through a very non-traditional route to be able to get, on a short call, and I just don't want to say names, with this very influential individual. And it wasn't the traditional route. I didn't know this person. The great thing about the city of Pittsburgh, I like to say, is 1.2 degrees of separation. So I was able to call someone that knew someone whose kids went to school with someone that was able to make the case for me. And, luckily for me, I guess, the person said yes. To be able to come up and, do this great, private reception with some major clients. And at that point of time, I think the biggest lesson that I learned is, all I can do is my best, right? And if I fail, that's okay, right? But did I really put my all into it? Did I lean into my community, my network, pull out all the tools and the tricks of the trade? And if I still, end up failing that Mission Impossible, then that's okay too. It's okay.
I will say this too, that a lot of times it comes down to one thing, leaning on your network. I mean, people, that's what we're here for. But leaning on your network, that 1.2 degrees of separation is so true. I can't tell you how many times somebody who my daughter went to preschool with, they will say, hey, do you remember me? But you know what? They get a yes. That's kind of how it works. It's 1.2 degrees of separation. I think that's something that's important to keep in mind is we have a network to lean on, and people, by and large, people want to help. Pittsburgh, this area, the greater Pittsburgh area, Western PA, I've lived in a lot of different places. The nicest, most generous people live in Western Pennsylvania. I'm telling you that. I have lived a lot of different locations. People are willing to help if you lean on your network. So would you like to, Jennifer, would you like to talk about a time of a challenge that you had to overcome?
So I'll share some of our company's dirty laundry with 800 of my new friends today. So when I became the president in 2015, I was 38 years old, and I was coming off of 5 years as the COO. So when our former president had resigned, and about a year prior to that, our publisher had passed away, the president who was leaving said, there's no question, Jennifer is ready, she's your person. And I thought, great, like everyone is supportive of me. I knew that our company was irrevocably broken at that point. I had been watching it for 5 years, and I thought, I know exactly how to fix it, and I did. And then I went to the first board meeting when I'm now with 6 other board members, and we were losing $65 million a year. So it seemed to me that it just makes sense that we're going to change things, right? I was actually told, no, we would much prefer that we just let the money run out, which was going to be in 2.5 years, and we'll tell everyone on the day that it's over, that it's over. And I sat there and I thought about people, and I'm looking at some of them. It's hard not to get emotional whenever I remember this, that I had worked with for 15 years, and they were trusting me to fix this. I had to fix it. 6 meetings in a row, I took a presentation that could fix it, and every time I got a thumbs down. So feeling sorry for myself, I don't generally cry. And the one night I sat at my house because I told my husband, hey, I didn't break this company, but I'm going to fix it. That's what I had promised. And I sat there, I thought, I'm not going to be able to fix this. They're not going to let me. And I had a good cry. And in that moment, like the best idea ever of all of them came to me. And I started making calls to people on the board like, hey, I have this idea. What do you think of this? What if we started working to trim some of these losses now? And here's the proposal that I have in front of you. And much to my surprise, I pulled it together. They all pretended to be supportive. I was going to find out if they were. And when I showed up at the board meeting and I made the presentation, they unanimously passed it. And in that moment, I knew really rough days were ahead. But for the people that we were going to be able to save their jobs because of the decisions made that day, it meant everything. So I have learned, hang in there.
There's so many things to take from there, but your resiliency, the continuation to come up with a new idea, and a new idea even after 6 no's, That's resiliency. I mean, it speaks to a lot of your character and really the character of all of the women on this panel. So again, one of the many reasons why I'm so happy to be here, but we want to try to get to as many questions as we can. So I want to switch now to personal branding and visibility. And Kia, I'm going to call on you first again, because this is kind of right in your neck of the woods. So how have you cultivated your personal brand and used it for networking, for visibility, to advance your career and advance your company and what you've been doing? And I think personal branding is something that a lot of us in the audience, I'm not good at it. I'm really bad at personal branding, to be honest. So I think that there are a lot of lessons that people can take away, that women can take away from what you know about personal branding. I mean, how do you advance your brand?
So personal branding, I feel like it's a newer concept over the last few years. And so it has taken me quite a while to just really understand and kind of grasp it. And I'm still working through that. By nature, I kind of am not a super fan of the visibility. I much rather be behind the scenes and just doing my thing quietly. But I do realize that I do need to communicate the message of my brand and to the people that I want to share that with. And the best way to do that is by, revealing the person behind the brand. So I think that's what it's about, is just about the authenticity of presenting yourself and being present. And I try to think about it in terms of not selling myself, because that is really what I shy away from, but instead think of it as I am serving these women. And I go back to, why I do what I do is because I can transform women and to serve them. And I think that's what personal branding is about in whatever your industry is.
Very good. Thank you so much. Victoria, it looks like you have a comment on this.
Sure, yeah, happy to jump in a little bit on personal branding. I think it's always so interesting as a female attorney how you brand yourself, because you are, this professional, and oftentimes you're a mom and you're wearing many hats and you're running from place to place and from occasion to occasion. I think you have to have a very introspective assessment of who you are in order to create this notion of professional branding and work to have it navigate through all avenues of your life. Just because I'm an attorney by day doesn't necessarily mean that I dismiss or dispel of that notion when I am, coaching my children's school forensics team. They still know me as this woman who can have a really aggressive persona in a courtroom, but can also have a warmth with students and helping them build their own confidence. And I was exploring my own personal branding as I was coming through the ranks as an attorney. And I've been in legal practice now for almost 20 years, and I sought the advice of so many in this process. And what I've learned is that personal branding is so unique. I spoke with a very successful woman shareholder at my firm, one of our very top executive women, and I sat with her many years ago. This was probably a decade ago now, and I said, how did you brand yourself? How did you market yourself to position you as somebody that businesses would come to and, start entrusting as their litigator? And jokes aside, she sat there and she said, I started swearing. And I kind of looked and I said, okay, all right. And in my mind, I'm like, this is not going to work for me. It's just, I think a different culture coming through. She needed to do that to succeed in the generation before us, when she truly was there with the guys and shop talk, and they were going to grab a beer, and she needed to figure out a way to fit in. And swearing was it for her. And as somebody who's come through the ranks, I was Miss Pennsylvania in my early days, 20 years ago in the rearview mirror. Swearing would definitely not get by with a sparkly tiara on your head. And it certainly doesn't get by now in the professional realm. But I think personal branding is so individual. So you can take notes from other women, but don't necessarily feel like you need to work in parallel or in tandem to somebody that you see out there succeeding. Look at what makes you unique. And that will be the foundation of your personal brand.
Love it. Yes, go ahead, Kia.
That just made me think of something else. That if you, and this was really hard for me to grasp because I want to stay behind the scenes, but when you realize you have a personal brand anyways, you may not really know what it is, but the people around you know what it is, but it may not be what you want want or think it to be. So I think it is important to be able to craft your own personal brand of how you want to present yourself, still in an authentic way, but just understand if you're not thoughtful and proactive about it, people are branding you how they want to brand you.
Yeah. And one other thing on this whole branding thing, which I've had to try to sort of take a step back and kind of think about, because I think there are people who are really naturally, and I say this in the best way, but they're good at self-promotion. And I admire people who are good at self-promotion. I am not one of those people that's naturally great at self-promotion, but I have had to reframe it slightly to think of it, if to the extent I have a brand, how can I use that brand to put some good out there into the world? And it's sort of a little bit of my own aha moment where I realize having a brand can be something very powerful.
Great customer care isn't a bonus, it's the backbone. At Armstrong, we believe fast internet is only as good as the people behind it. We continually invest in our network to take care of our customers and keep them connected. Armstrong support is free, local, and always available. Fiber fast internet reinforced by friendly first service. We're proud of our reputation for customer care, and we earn it every day. Internet you can count on, the people you trust. That's Armstrong.
Comes out, as Kia was alluding to. So in the desert in 03, 04, so they had swept up every Iraqi of military age. So I had people in that were murderers, rapists, terrorists, also people that only had 2 AK-47s. So one of those gentlemen happened to be in medical school, and his parents were teachers, and they would come to family visitation and want to get him released because he had already missed a semester of school. And so I sent him up to a special Article 5 tribunal. They released him. I was so excited about it, and this was a mistake on my part, by the way, that I took him out to his parents. And every day after 100 people showed up at the gate, can we find the blonde major that helps the people? And so fast forward, all these years later, you know, we don't have a budget, right? Only state in the country that doesn't have one. And I'm not placing blame on either party, but I had people know that I like to help people. So I had Head Starts calling me back in July saying, how can you help? This is the only nutritious meal some of these kids get. And then I had the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center called me. So I was racking my head trying to think, what can we do? And then it occurred to me, although I have a lot of people in my office that have been there 30 years, I came up with the idea. I said, well, we do short-term investment pools. Why can't I do this for counties? Why can't we do this for Head Starts, pre-Ks, Rape and Abuse Crisis Centers, and domestic violence? I said, you know, we can't help everybody, but our vulnerable populations. And so we have offered a $500 million short-term investment pool. So again, that's the whole Stacey Garrity likes to help people brand.
Well, and that is, having a brand and being able to help people is actually, personally, I think is a good thing. Now, Kenya, you have a whole organization that is about helping people. So talk a little bit about your organization's brand and how you're able to leverage that.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with my own personal brand. So I was just thinking about a recent trip to Philadelphia. So I was able to speak at a conference. And while I was there, that opened the doors for other sort of private, invitation only, you know, spaces I was able to be in. After getting in those spaces, I found some connectivity that would be helpful to some organizations and some of the work that we're doing in Pittsburgh, right? So if I'm looking at how I was able to leverage my professional brand, my company's brand, that's what got me in this space at this particular conference. Looking at some of the things that I look at as my personal brand, which I like to say that I'm a fixer. I was so obsessed with the TV show Scandal. I literally think I'm Olivia Pope. But you know, that creates some interesting opportunities for, you know, different rooms that I'm able to be able to be in that may not just be healthcare specific. So those hand in hand, going into different spaces, and again, having connectivity that may not be for me personally, but being able to bring that back here to our region has been something I found extremely helpful.
Anyone else, or we can move on to the next question? I'll move on to the next question because I think there are a lot of people probably in this room that this might help, or maybe they know somebody. If somebody's looking for a job, what advice would you have? I mean, we've talked about the way the economy is. We've talked about the state not having a state budget. There have been layoffs. There have been people who have had challenges. What would you tell somebody if they are looking for a job? And I'm not sure if you've ever been in that situation where maybe you've been laid off or maybe you were transitioning. What concrete advice would you give to somebody who's out there in the job market right now? I'm going to pick on somebody. All right, Jennifer.
So speaking of branding, the first recommendation I would make is make sure that everything that is public in your social media accounts is something that you are proud of and that you will stand behind. Many employers today, one of the first things we'll do when we see a name, so again, speaking to the importance of branding, is let's Google them, let's learn more about them, let's see who their acquaintances are, let's see if they volunteer. So I can't underscore enough the importance of making sure that whatever you're putting out there in the world is something that you are comfortable with your employer seeing. I would also say, be unique, be inventive. With the way that media is changing so much, it's not uncommon now for someone to solicit via a video an interview for a job. And the people who are a little more creative and not so traditional, that I will send my resume with this cover letter and everything will be perfect, it's not always going to be what catches a hiring manager's attention. So I would say take some chances. And, fun story, it's, going back to 1997, but my brother, he is a features producer at ESPN, and he wanted a job there more than you could imagine. He was a writer at a local paper at the time, and they had internships, and he thought, well, I'll have to quit my job if I get one, but boy, I really want to work for ESPN. He actually mailed them a jock strap and a video, and they said it was the jock strap that got our attention, that brought you here. And he was hired as an intern, and he was 6 months later brought on full time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that today.
I hope it was
Again,
clean.
It was 1997, but just highlighting the importance of creativity matters, particularly if you're applying for a creative field.
All right. Who else on the panel wants to take this question? Because there probably are people here who came here today because they are looking for a job or know somebody who is looking for a job. So, Victoria, would you like to add some comments?
Sure, I can add a little bit. At Buchanan, I currently am the chair of our Associates Committee, which is the shareholder oversight of our several hundred associates across our 17 offices nationwide. And it's a lot involved in hiring, bringing on summer associates. And so we are often overwhelmed by a great number of applicants who have great academic credentials, who have some really wonderful, relevant work experience. And so at the end of the day, you're kind of looking at what are those differentials? And I think there's a lot of interview trainers out there. There's a lot of suggestions online, how to revamp your resume, how to make it look nice. I am so interested in people who have the professional hallmarks of long-term success. And what are they? The ability to dig a little bit deeper than the job they're looking and have an eye on what their aspirations are. And it's so hard in this day and age because in the opportunities that are put forward for people, it's hard to distill exactly what you want to do. But those applicants that come to us in their interview with an idea of what their aspiration is, even if it changes, I think Kenya pointed out earlier in the panel, you might say like, okay, no, but who, or someone else, even if this job is not right and you are not the right fit for this job, when you come to the table with what your aspirations are at that time, that placement, that interview is an opportunity for you to say, you know what, you're not a good fit for our firm at this time or this particular role, but I have 2 other colleagues that have additional needs and you would be the perfect fit for them. And so for anybody who's pursuing a professional role or a change in this room, I would say really go into the interview and your cover letter with a clear articulation of what your aspiration is and how you seek to grow. And that can be a launch pad for maybe not that job, but some other opportunities.
Absolutely. Megan, you work with a lot of young people. What advice do you give for some of the young people either coming out of community college or even people who might be in the middle of their career as far as job searching?
Yeah, I think in building off what others have said, just meeting with as many people as you can. And if someone offers to meet with you, to have coffee, to have lunch, and you feel like, yeah, but they're not really in the field that I'm interested in. I don't know if that would be a good use of my time. It will be a good use of your time because they could be talking to you about they have a friend that has another opportunity or could connect you or could open your eyes to potential in their area that you never saw before. And also, every single time that you talk to somebody and that you have a professional connection or share a meal or share coffee, that's practice for you also. That's important. And no connection is ever a bad connection to make. I think it was 1.2 degrees of separation. Maybe you meet that person, you say thank you for lunch, you walk away, and then 10 years later, you circle back to them and that ends up being useful for one or both of you. And so just meet as many people as you can.
Yeah, I want to just kind of insert a little story here, and it gives a little bit of background, like the TV world. And I started off in local news and, worked my way up, and I've been all over. But one of the things is we would go to these journalism conferences, these huge conferences that bring in people from all around the country. And you have these major media organizations that have booths, and you stand in line and you want somebody, one of the hiring or one of the news directors, to take a look at your resume reel, which is basically a sample of your work. One of the tricks that I've learned, I learned this years ago. I usually, I'm now on the other side where I'm looking at people's reels, but one of the tricks I learned when I was looking for a job early on in my career was when you are standing in line and everybody there wants to talk to the hiring manager or the news director, look right and look left. Talk to the people who are waiting in line, because chances are, I was at a small market at this point. Those people in line are at medium-sized markets, which means if they're looking to move up, guess what? That is a job opening now at their station. Talk to the people who are looking to move up in their industry. If you're in an industry, talk to the other people who want to move up, because when they move up and they take another job, you will know about a job vacancy before anybody else does, because you have the contact. And that's exactly what would happen. Is I stayed in contact with, I would collect cards and business cards and all kinds of contacts, not just for the people doing the hiring, but for the employees who were there, who's looking to make a move, because when they make a move, that means there's an opening. It's kind of being strategic. I like to think you have to have a strategy, and it's not necessarily going from point A to point B, but it might be point A, B, C, D, E, F, and then you eventually get to your goals. So be open-minded, and I think that's one thing that's helped me personally in my goals. And I also think I have met people who I wasn't looking for a job, and then out of the blue, I got my second job in TV this way. Out of the blue, somebody called me up and said, back when you were a student, this news director, and I'm like, that news director from 2 years ago who I had some random conversation with, yeah, he wants you to send you some of your material in reel. And that's how I got my second job in media. So always be on the lookout, always keep your eyes open. I know it's a tough time with the economy, and that's one of the reasons why that was not on my official list of questions, but I wanted to make sure that we got to it. But if there's anyone else that wants to add on this subject about just the job searching prospects and how you go about doing it. Anyone else want to add anything? Any final thoughts? Or we can move on to the next question, which is, again, one of these, I want a 1 minute question, and then I have to ask the absolute final question. So a minute, we'll go down the line, and I'll start with you, Stacy. Just really quickly, tell me if you had to write a thank you letter, who would you write your thank you letter to and why? We got to keep it really quick, because then I got to get to my final question.
Oh my gosh. So I guess my parents for raising me with the values of faith, family, community, and never letting me quit anything. And for my dad for, you know how I got in the military? He tricked me into it, although I stayed 30 years. But I came home from college my sophomore year, what I thought was a normal weekend, and he is a recruiter sitting on the couch. And so the rest is history. So probably my parents.
Kia?
I would say my husband. Don't tell him this. But having never worked in another company, I've always owned my own business. To be able to see how you lead people, how you interact with people, how you take care of your people. I think that has been, and I don't want to say just like your work people, your family, extended family people, the generosity, the pure care, the modeling, I would say, write a thank you note for that. But
Kenya?
Mine would be my mother, because there's so many things that after she passed made so much more sense. So I will write that note to say you were right all along, but again, I didn't have the opportunity to do so.
All right, Jennifer.
I would write my letter to my coworkers. It is an honor and a privilege to work with them every day. I learn from them every day. They make me better. I think we have a lot of fun doing what we do, but I certainly would have not stayed in this business for 27 years if not for the camaraderie, the sharing, and the friendships that I built over that time.
Victoria.
Sure. Well, I have to look back at table 62 and 63 over there because those two tables are comprised with my tribe. First and foremost, my grandmother is with us today. She's 94 years young, and she made the trip all this way because she has been one of my biggest cheerleaders throughout life. Also, my parents, Dave and Patty, they made the trek in. My husband, Jason, who's sitting at that table, he has allowed me to be in the seat as the greatest co-parent and spouse. We just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary earlier this summer. So I see them there. And, my best friends, my clients, my community leaders, my mentors, my other outstanding women who inspire me each and every day. Laurel, who nominated me, one of our panelists last year. I mean, the two tables, 62 and 63, I could write thank you letters to you until my ink runs dry.
Oh, that's very beautiful. Megan.
I would, like some of the other panelists, also say my mom and dad, who just so wonderfully modeled hard work, kindness, driving in that we are better than no one else, and that community matters.
I love that. I would thank my mom also for all the sacrifice. I think it's important always, who are your roots? Who are your people? And let's thank them while they're here. So if you can, that one message I would say tonight, tomorrow, pick up the phone, call the person who you would thank. But now we get to our final question. I think we'll go this way. So we'll start with you again, Megan. This is the legacy and impact question. When people reflect on your leadership years from now, what impact do you hope that they say that you made on your organization, on your community, on the women who follow you?
Yeah, so I certainly hope that all the organizations I end up touching throughout my life, that I have helped them, grown them, moved them forward. In terms of legacy, for me, that would be my two little girls, my husband, all the people in my orbit, all the women and men, that they recognize that you can be a kind, empathetic, imperfect person and also be an effective, decisive, respected leader.
Victoria?
Sure. So I hope people will remember me as somebody who used my voice, a voice for good and change, not just legal advocacy, but for leading organizations that I serve, those that are close to my heart, as a voice for my family, for our family's values and faith, and also as somebody who was willing to use my talents to uplift our community. One of my inspirations, one of our Supreme Court justices who I had the privilege to meet and sing before a number of years ago prior to her passing, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, said that the mark of a true professional is somebody who reaches beyond themselves and works to repair the tears in their community. And that has led me to feel so inspired to sometimes say yes when I shouldn't, and to extend boundaries. And we each have that capacity in ourselves. We are professionals, but we have an obligation to use our talents to repair the tears in our community and lift people as we rise. And we as women have a special charge, not only with that in our families, but in our professional lives, but we are empathizers. We can see people in need in a unique and very human way. And whether it's bringing an antacid or an Advil to witnesses in the courtroom who are about to testify, or leading my family, I hope that people will see that I'm somebody who's using my talents to try and uplift our community.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I guess that, when I'm looking back, what I hope people will say, I hope that they say she made a difference in the industry. I'm a very big advocate on a national stage, often for journalism. I hope that our team at Trib Total Media and Trib Live can say in moving forward with innovation. We never lost the roots of the important work that we do and why that is so vital to the communities that we serve. And I think I would most hope that the employees of Trib Total Media would say she led with compassion and heart, and we knew that she always cared about us.
Kenya.
I was going to say, I hope I'm remembered for my sense of humor and that I was fabulous and all those things. But I would hope that I could be remembered as being a truly good thought partner, a connector, collaborator, and someone that tried my very best to provide access for others.
Kia.
I'd like my legacy to be as an advocate for women, and beyond the clothing that I make and design with the mission of, supporting women in their lives, but also in the support and empowerment of my employees. I have an all-female team, as well as the support and empowerment of my friends and family and anyone I come into contact with around me.
Very nice. Thank you. And Stacy.
It's tough to follow all you wonderful women. You guys are amazing. But I hope I'm remembered for a couple things. My only ambition was to serve, and that I uplifted people around me. So whether in the military, so we had 7,000 detainees, first internment facility to have 0 abuse allegations. In the private sector, uplifting my team. At Treasury, helping vulnerable populations. And then with my family. Funny story, my wedding day, my grandmother needed her oxygen tank switched out. My mother was appalled. You can't do that. You're like in your wedding gown. Said, who else is going to do it, Mom? So, so that's what I hope I'm remembered for. Although I don't think we're ever at an end-all be-all. We're still moving down that line of, we can do so much more, no matter where we are in the journey.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And can we please give our entire panel a round of applause? I want to thank you all of you. I have learned so much. It's I've been in my career in business for a while, but every single time I come to an event like this, I take so much away, and it literally, it's like it will percolate. The only word is I will start thinking about it and thinking, wow, again, you are every one of you, so incredibly inspiring. And I'm happy again that my daughter can be in this room, that she can hear some of these lessons, but all of the women and the men who are in this room as well. And that is going to officially conclude our program. But again, if we could give them a round of applause. And that was my tease. Don't get up quite yet. Look at your program. I see somebody's holding your program. Go to page 12 is what I was told. There is a special, if you got a sticker in there, there is a special treat. Here's a hint. It is the lovely Kia Tomlin's face on page 12. And if you have got the special sticker on, look for the Kia Tomlin page, then you are getting a nice little prize. It is a beautiful scarf that she has donated to the organization. So if we could give her a round of applause for her generosity. And I also want everyone to please, let's take a moment to thank Ethan. Thank Ethan for making this possible. Thank Jordan Grady, all of their amazing work. They put in a lot of work to make this happen. And finally, please mark your calendars. You can get your phones out right now, October 16th. That is going to be next year's date for Women Shaping Our Region, Friday, October 16th, 2026. And also to the panelists, please hang around for a few minutes. We're going to take some group photos. And I hope all of you hang around. Please take these lessons, continue networking, and I hope you have a beautiful and blessed afternoon and weekend. Thank you.